we're going to jump into kind of our next segment of My Counselor Live, which is our trending topic. You know, what are people talking about? What are people curious about? And for this week, and I thought this was maybe an interesting one to do after talking through that article on infidelity and all of these things, is sex addiction, which is so interesting. I feel like for people that maybe have never experienced this, I mean, it seems so wild, like that would be an addiction, but I would love just your thoughts on, first of all, maybe what this is for those who don't know, and also just how common it is, really.
Yeah, so sex addictions is what we'd call a process addiction, which is different than a chemical addiction. So a lot of times when people hear the word addiction, their context is chemical addictions. It's drugs, it's alcohol, it's things like that, literally entering the body and changing, you know, a person's chemistry. You know, that's what they think of. So when they hear sex and addiction, it goes, wait a second, sex drive is normal. You're just somebody who can't control yourself, or you like sex. Process addictions, you get into things like gambling, or you know, working excessively, or in this case, sex. And what we look for with sexual addiction is sex addiction, and this is, some of this is a little bit of my opinion or just my experience in it. But when you look at a sex addiction is sexual behaviors that are happening regardless of negative consequences, or regardless of a person's own moral convictions. So to say that, it's like I'm this sexual acting out is disruptive, it's hurting my life, hurting people around me, but I do it anyway. It's maybe against what I believe to be right. It is fundamentally something I'm morally opposed to, yet I continue to do that. And some of the other aspects of it is it has a tendency to be compulsive, meaning the person lacks an ability to manage and control it independently. That's not an excuse, so please don't hear it that way. Our responsibility is to get help. We always have that option. So even if sexual behavior is something that's compulsive, getting help is a choice. But the other thing is sex addiction tends to escalate, meaning a person will notice they need to do more just to get the same high or release, or they will go into, the more can be more time, the more can be more stimulus, different novel situations. In the case of things like pornography, a lot of times somebody may start with something that we would consider more traditional, just nudity or something like that, and they progress to watching kinds of pornography that they later go, I never would have imagined watching this. I never would have imagined being aroused by seeing this or that, but I ended up in this, you know, what they would have considered at the beginning an extreme form. So there's an escalation, there's a need for more stimulus, there's an obsessive quality to it. So sex goes from being a function, kind of just a drive that we have, to the thought processes around sex become very obsessive and focused. And so a person goes from sex is a part of my life to sex is my most important need. Sex is central. Sex is important, it is a part of life, but when you get into sex addiction, it goes from being an important part of life to an obsessive and consuming part of life. And as far as the prevalence of this, unfortunately, what we're finding is especially in the areas of any kind of electronic sexual behavior, meaning interacting online with other people, pornography, online strip clubs.
Which is very common now, more than ever before.
More than ever before. A new thing that we're having people report is with the new VR devices that the pornography industry, unfortunately, uses everything that they can. And with that, what we're finding is we've got a lot of people who have we have an access to such an easily addictive and consuming behavior that they're getting into trouble. There's a lot more, I would say, of sexually addictive behavior than there ever has been before, thanks to access. And probably the other troubling thing is because of the access, and because even at this point, there are a lot of parents who don't take seriously monitoring their children's access to the world. I have a lot of young adults now who pornography and acting out sexually, and maybe it is through only pornography, but that has now become interwoven with their sexual development. From the time that they hit puberty, pornography was a part of their sexual development. So they, in a sense, have grown up with it, which is really problematic when they go to have relationship with real people, and when they want to have a satisfying sexual connection with that person, and enjoy that in intimacy, because the way that pornography and those kinds of things shape our sense of sexuality is it really, really distorts it into primarily novelty, stimulus seeking, non-intimate kinds of sexual gratification. That has a really profound effect on someone's sexual development.
Yeah, right. So say someone is listening today and kind of can pick themselves out as someone who maybe does have a sex addiction, does have this process disordered addiction that you mentioned, and what can be done? How do you kind of heal that or prevent it? What are the next steps for that person?
Yeah, so really getting help is the next step. If you're in an addictive place, or maybe you've grown up with these kinds of things in your life, understanding and that you can't do this on your own, that's really important. That this is not something that you have control of; it's something that's controlling you. And so the very first thing is say, hey, you need to get help, and help. Usually when it comes to sex addiction, we're looking at things like it's going to be a mix of counseling, and it's also going to be, I really am a strong advocate of 12-step groups. And I know when I say that, a lot of times, I can hear, the reaction, oh, I don't want to do that. That'd be so embarrassing. I would just tell you that is so necessary and so powerful in really moving you into a place of victory. And what I have found is when we get involved in those groups and we form relationship in those groups, what was once shameful becomes this area where we have incredible support, incredible encouragement, and tremendous victory. And so I know it's hard in the beginning, but it is so worth it. And I would just say this, to that individual. I'd say, listen, you probably feel tremendous shame, but I just want to convey to you that I don't feel shame towards you. The people that you would go to in those groups, whether it's a men's group or women's group, if it's a group, they're not going to shame you. They don't feel that way towards you. Don't have any interest in judging you. They want to help you. They want to help you succeed. And so I just want to share that encouragement.
No, and I think that is great encouragement to share, because I'm sure that around this topic, there can be a lot of shame and a lot of fear of judgment. And so I love that you mentioned that, and hopefully that was able to really encourage someone and maybe inspire them to go and seek that support that they need.